Welcome to Living Life on the Max with Keisha B. Spivey, a weekly podcast that will challenge you and encourage you to live your best life yet. Hello there. Thank you for tuning in. I am so excited to talk to you another week about navigating problems. This is our 6th week of talking about how to deal with that thing that keeps showing up in your life, that thing that keeps getting in between you and where you want to go and who you want to be, and that thing that you want to become. Just got to start back up with the quote that we shared for the last couple weeks, which is Thomas Edison. He says, "Opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work." We've been undressing problems and we've been talking about problems because the natural truth is, I hate to say this and you may not like it, but our natural tendency is to be lazy. Or if you don't like the word lazy, our natural tendency is to get distracted, or we can call it drifting. Whatever word makes you feel better, whatever it is, we don't like work. We don't like work. And so today what I want to talk to you about is realizing that perspective is important. We got to keep our problems in perspective. We have to learn how to frame these things. I know you probably heard the saying, "I grumbled because I had no shoes. Then I met a man who had no feet." Every time I think about that, I hear that, I think back to being a child and say we didn't finish our food at the table and we were throwing it away. And my dad would always say, "You know what? Somebody out there is hungry and you can't waste food or throw food away." And we were like, okay, but we have plenty. And it was because we were looking at our situation and their situation as completely two different things. We couldn't see the connection. What did my throwing away food have to do with hungry people someplace else? And the same thing happens when we look at our situations and we look at our problems. We look at it through a lens one way on how we feel about it, what our experiences say about it, not realizing that in somebody else's world, hunger is a big deal. In somebody else's world, the thing that you think is a big deal is really nothing at all. So sometimes the best thing that we can do when we're dealing with problems is we need to stop and get a different perspective. We need to get a perspective. When you look up the definition of perspective, it's a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something. It's a point of view. It's the way you see something. When you look at the word perspective, it's got a Latin root meaning to look through or to perceive. And all of the meanings of perspective have something to do with looking. Everything about perspective has something to do with looking. So if you observe the world from a turtle's perspective, guess what? You've got a turtle view. If you observe the world from a giraffe's perspective, guess what? You have a giraffe view. So let's just have a real talk for a moment. Most problems we face are pretty insignificant in the larger scheme of things. Yesterday, I was on my way to pick up my car to get an inspection. But when I started it, the muffler started sounding crazy. I started driving it. The service light came on. In that moment, I knew something was wrong. So I took it on to the shop a little earlier than I'd anticipated. I thought I was going there for inspection, but what I ended up doing was needing some major repair work. All of a sudden, I was mad and I had this big problem. How much is this going to cost? But then I got a call about someone's daughter who was sick. And they were in a really touchy situation, needing prayer. And all of a sudden, my problem wasn't as big as I thought it was. Because at the end of the day, when it's time to get that car from the mechanic, guess what? We're going to pick it up. And if money can really solve that problem, is it really a problem? When it comes to someone's health, when it comes to life and death, how big is this problem? When it comes to somebody hurt my feelings and it comes to somebody losing a family member, how big is my problem? We've got to get a good perspective on this thing and we've got to learn how to frame it. Realizing that there are people around you who have much bigger problems than yours brings about gratitude. It brings about gratitude. When we are able to literally frame our problem through a lens of gratitude, it doesn't diminish the issue that we're facing, but it does minimize the unnecessary emotion and anguish that we attach to this feeling. Sorry for ourselves. We attach our feelings to this thing, and we literally start having a pity party of one. We don't invite anybody, and we're just, whoa, 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 it's me. But gratitude shifts our perspective and it shifts our position. I'm no longer a victim, regardless of the problem that I'm facing. I'm no longer powerless, regardless of the problem that I'm facing. I'm no longer defeated, regardless of the problem that I'm facing. All of a sudden, I got power again. Even in the face of my problems, I can still be victorious. Even in the face of my trial, I can still triumph. Even when it seems like I've been defeated, I can still discover more of what's waiting and more what's to come. I kind of shared this thought, about Stephen Furtick. I read this and it keeps coming up, and I shared this a couple different times, I think, in a few of our lessons together. But he said that your perspective will either become your prison or your passport. Your prison or your passport. How you see the world, how you see your life, how you see your situations, how you see the things that you're facing. It will either elevate you or deflate you. I shared last night when I was teaching that we have to realize in our life, we're a lot like a tomato. We're either ripening, getting sweeter, getting better, or we're rotting. There's no in between. And we need to understand that when you put your perspective, your view, your lens, your take on the situation determines if you're going better or if you're getting bitter. Your perspective shows if you are grateful or and you're thankful, or whether or not you're going to look at it and I'm tired and I feel used and taken advantage of. Perspective is key. You got to frame it. Our family recently took pictures, and we were so excited about our family pictures and excited about, just our family growing. Last year, year before, our son got married, and so our family is growing. We even got pictures with all the dogs because my kids all have dogs, and so we have all these pictures. But at the end of the day, the picture is beautiful, but I've been deciding on how I was going to frame it, because how I see what's in the frame is determined by the frame. So the picture is beautiful. It's amazing. But what's going to set that thing right? What's going to give it the look I want it to have? What's going to give it the feel I want it to have is the frame I put around it. The frame I put around it. What is the frame that you're putting around your problems? What's the border? What's the lens? How you frame that thing. I think about our kids when they were growing up. When we would have situations that were not necessarily positive, we didn't sit them down and just throw it at them. We framed it in a way that they didn't even recognize it might have been bad news. We framed it in a way that might have made them curious, and they ask questions, but it sent us in a different direction to where something is positive versus sitting on that thing that's negative. Are you framing your problems with pessimism? Are you framing your problems with optimism? How are you framing it to yourself? How are you framing it to others? How are you framing it with your words? How are you framing it with your actions? How are you framing it with your thoughts? How are you framing it with your expectations? What are you anticipating? How are you framing that thing? Psalms 34:19 is a verse I keep coming back to as we're going through these lessons, because we just need to realize that problems are a part of the package. It talks about how many are the afflictions and the troubles of the righteous, but God delivers us out of them all. And I keep coming back to this with problems because, so often people think that they're supposed to skip it, that problems are everybody else's issue, but they're not yours. One of the things I've discovered is when I am navigating through life and I'm not having any issues and everything seems to just be clicking like I like, immediately I know I need to go into prep mode. Why? Because life includes problems. So maybe I'm getting a breather right now, not because my world is about to be problem free and I'm never going to have an issue again, because maybe God is giving me a moment to build up, to fill up, to grow up, to get in shape for whatever problem's going to be coming my way. So when it comes, I can frame it with a mindset of belief, of hope, of even rejoicing. Even in the midst of it, I can still count it joy. Even if it's not looking like I want it to look. When I framed it for possibilities and I framed it for what could be, and I framed it in a mindset, wait a minute, this thing couldn't have come to take me out. When my perspective is that I understand that God must be doing something in me and through me and for me. When my perspective is on greater is he that's in me than anything that I can face. When I frame it through the lens of the truth that I know. When I frame it through the promises that God has made to me. When I frame it through God's faithfulness to me and the things that he's already done and the doors he's already opened and the ways he's already made. When I frame it through the lens that he has said that there's nothing that can come at me that I'm not able to overcome and to become a conqueror in because of him. When I frame it correctly with truth, not with feelings and with emotions, when I frame it, I can charge into that thing with an expectation that God is God and that this thing that's come at me did not catch him off guard. It might have surprised me, but it did not surprise him. I can come at it from the lens knowing that everything happening in my life was either God ordained or God allowed. Nothing has slipped in a back door. So when it comes at me, I have to frame it through the lens that I'm more than a conqueror in Christ Jesus. I have to frame it through the lens that he's got me. I have to frame it through the lens he wrote the end of my story before there was a beginning. I have to frame it through the lens that purpose and destiny and victory and calling and assignment are my portion. When I frame it through the perspective of what I know, then I am able to navigate that thing with the confidence that failing is not an option. It's all about how I frame the picture. It's all about how you frame your problem. It's all about how you frame the perspective. I hope this has been good to you. I hope it's challenged you. I hope it's awakened something in you that you will join us next week as we close out this segment, because the whole point of talking about fearlessly navigating problems is so that we understand that we are equipped. We are equipped to rise and shine. We are equipped to become more. And we're also equipped to do more. So until we connect again, I want to challenge you, do you to the max. God bless, and we'll connect next week.